Hello there, wrestling fans. You're listening to the Wrestling Fans Incite. I'm your host, John Hoppy, and I am joined by my tag team partner, Brian the Hype Ballard. Brian, how's it going?
It's going good. Welcome to, we should call this Saturday Night Slam Masters or something like that, right? So I love it.
Well, we're recording on Saturday, but we're airing on Sunday, so I don't know if that kind of works. So,
Did I just pull back the curtain a little? Sorry, guys.
yeah, but that's okay because I'm sure some people figure it out by now. But anyways, Brian will now be giving away all of our secret tricks here.
Just welcome to Unreal.
Brian, it's been a week. This is kind of a new record for us, back-to-back weeks of doing an episode. So this is kind of feels a little weird, but how's your week been?
It's been good. And, it's been a good week, but, it's also wrestling's given us a lot to talk about. So it is January, right? So, and I expect we're going to have a little more that is we are in WrestleMania season. So I'm excited about it.
Yeah, and right now we're on the build-up to WWE's annual event, the Royal Rumble. In some ways, unfortunate, being held in Saudi this year. Not my favorite thing to say, but it is what it is. But it's not going to stop us from watching. But Brian, speaking of that, Royal Rumble, what would you say some of your favorite moments?
Oh, wow. So many over the years. At a glance, Shawn Michaels going from number one all the way to the end with the British Bulldog, by the way. Davey Boy Smith, not a lot of people give him credit. They were the final two that started at 1 and 2 and went to the very end. That was one. And then Bret Hart and Lex Luger simultaneously eliminated each other, causing a double main event at WrestleMania 10. That was always a good one. But there were so many great ones over the years, right? I also remember Vince McMahon participating in the Royal Rumble and winning. And then also, Stone Cold Steve Austin having a hit put out on him by Vince McMahon, right? And having an elimination target on his back because, Vince didn't want him winning and becoming champion again. I could go on and on, right? But I also enjoyed the Ric Flair Rumble when Ric Flair went into the Rumble and won in 92, right? And some people would say that's the greatest Royal Rumble of all time, at least in that era. So what were some of yours that come to mind?
Well, the top one you just mentioned was Ric Flair winning the Royal Rumble in 92. And the reason why I love that one the most is because this event actually meant something for the Royal Rumble winner. Unfortunately, due to the shenanigans between Hulk Hogan, The Undertaker, and Ric Flair with the then WWF Championship, Undertaker defeating Hogan at Survivor Series, and then a week later, Hogan regaining it back at this Tuesday in Texas. A lot of the involvement from Ric Flair causing these title changes. That's when Jack Tunney, Brian Ballard's favorite person to always mention on the show, he comes in, vacates the WWF Championship, and is awarding whoever wins the 92 Rumble the new WWF champion. And the reason why I like that Rumble too is because that was also the same event Roddy Piper defeated the Mountie for the Intercontinental Championship. Wouldn't that have been cool if Roddy Piper won the Intercontinental Championship, goes in the Rumble and wins the WWF World Heavyweight Championship? I was kind of hoping that was going to happen, but at that time I knew better anyways. I actually thought for sure it would have ended up being Hulk Hogan. However, that was the biggest part of the 92 Rumble was Hogan was not the winner.
Yep.
It ended up being Ric Flair. Hogan wasn't even the second to last guy in the ring. He was the third to last, being eliminated by Sid Justice. And, and that was the injustice for Sid there because he wasn't even eliminated. Well, he was by Flair, but a lot of that help was by Hulk Hogan.
Oh, he thought he had a handshake from a friend, right? So, and some of the thing that doesn't get enough credit in that Rumble, and I would like to actually see in current Rumbles, was the heel commentary by Bobby the Brain Heenan. And that's something we could use in a modern product that gave it a lot of heart, right? And I remember Heenan's back and forth commentary and very pro Flair that added so much to the story. And I remember you mentioned Roddy Piper. And I remember he's like, that skirt wearing freak. And then he saved Flair from being eliminated. He's like, I'm sorry, Rick. And he's like, it's not a skirt, it's a kilt. And then he went against Flair again. He's like, he is a freak. You know, back and forth. And he was so emotional. And I was like, man, we really need some commentators like that are just overly over the top on one side and very invested in a few wrestlers winning. So that made that very special.
It did. And my second one, like another one you mentioned, was Bret Hart and Lex Luger being a double winner at the Royal Rumble, which meant double main event at WrestleMania 10. And you only saw that almost replicated once, but because Vince McMahon wanted to make sure there was one clear winner, it technically never happened again. Unfortunately, Batista eliminated John Cena to become the winner of that particular Royal Rumble. But I really loved the fact that there was co-winners at the 94 Rumble to get, like you mentioned, get that double main event.
You remember Vince blowing both of his quads in that one?
Yes.
Sitting in the ring yelling.
It's almost kind of like father, like son, when Shane McMahon blew his at WrestleMania.
Hey, Snoop Dogg saved the day there.
Yep, no kidding. But anywho, yeah, those were my two favorite. But the thing I love about the Royal Rumble now is ever since after the initial 92 Rumble, where the winner became the champion every year after, now the Royal Rumble winner gets to choose the main event at WrestleMania, which championship they want to challenge for. So I think a lot of good has come a long way with the Royal Rumble when it first started. Now that the winner it's meaningful to actually win the Rumble. And that's something I think was missing the first, I want to say 4 or 5 years.
Yep.
No, it was actually the first 3 years, because didn't it start in 89 or 88?
It started in, I want to say 88. Hacksaw Jim Duggan won the first.
Jim Duggan was the first winner.
Yep.
And then I think Hogan won the next two after that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but anyways, wow, we kind of went on a good little bit of ramble there for Royal Rumble, but I'm really excited to see what's coming up, and I really hope this Royal Rumble really entertains us all, and see what the clear path for the road to WrestleMania will end up being here. But Brian, we got a little bit to talk about here in our 1 hour time limit, and let's kind of get started here. And this first little bit is an interesting one, because this just happened this past Thursday, and it's involving a class action lawsuit filed against the WWE and the ESPN. And I'm reading this based off the Sports Illustrated, but there have been numerous resources on this story. The class action lawsuit against WWE and ESPN has been filed by fans who believe they were misled about the access to WWE's premium live events when the shows moved to ESPN's new streaming product. The lawsuit alleges that WWE and ESPN created confusion during the rollout by suggesting that all existing ESPN subscribers would have access to WWE premium live events without an additional fee. The lawsuit names only WWE as a defendant, not ESPN or its parent company, Disney, to avoid arbitration and class action waiver provisions in Disney's subscriber agreement. The lawsuit claims that more than $5 million are at issue, and if the plaintiffs prevail, eligible customers might receive a refund or partial payment. Now, keep in mind, I did read this off Google, but I did verify that Sports Illustrated and a few others have reported this. Brian, this one's kind of interesting because it's first worded as the lawsuits against ESPN and WWE, but this is now saying it's only against WWE. It's kind of a mess of a lawsuit in some ways, but when we all found out ESPN was going to be the new home of the WWPLEs, I don't even think ESPN and WWE knew what they were doing when they did this deal, because everything seemed so confusing, even myself included. Like, who's sorting this mess? Who gets what for their subscription? Because there's different levels of the ESPN subscriptions. But
Yeah.
Brian, let's get your thoughts.
Yeah, and I'm assuming when they say WWE, they're suing TKO Endeavor as the parent company, right?
That's what I imagine.
So, because being the sole ownership, you can civilly sue anybody for anything, right? Now, the idea is, my assumption is that I don't know if there'd be much to stand on. It would have to go back to the terms and conditions, right? And the things that we all scroll through and we just hit accept when we sign up for services. But I do even know that when you would look at even in the fine print in the commercials, it would say, $34.99 for the first so many months, and then this price for. I would be interested to see what that big long scrolls terms and conditions are, because while they advertise, oh, it's this and this, and you would get this, what does that fine print say? And if for some reason a lot of that was missed in the fine print there, then that's, just negligence on TKO Endeavor in that case, rolling that out. But at the end of the day, if they have that in there, they're technically covered. And, that would be, like I said, I'm kind of proud of the fan base for at least filing this and rolling this out in an attempt. I do think it'll get probably squashed pretty quickly. But I'm kind of proud of that just because that's a voice, right? And saying, hey, we're not happy with this ESPN stuff. And you guys just think you can do whatever you want, which you can. You own the company. But, we're just unhappy with how we've been treated in 2025 and how we've been thrown over here and over here and over here. And a lot of us didn't even know where the library was going, right? Or where to watch NXT or where, and there was really no roadmap for the fans. And I think if there was a clear-cut roadmap to success, I think a lot of this stuff would not have, we didn't make a lot of moves with the fans in mind. We made a lot of moves with ESPN and the bank accounts and a lot of things like that in mind. And I don't think they thought of the fans. I think they just said, 1/3 of them will follow. We're good. And I think that was really the biggest issue. And I think that's what's, you'll have things like this. You'll have people tweeting things. And I think that's just starting to come out. But I don't know if there's any hard ground to stand on.
I pretty much echo everything you just said there. However, I do like the fact that the fans kind of took a stand on this a bit to voice their frustration, like you mentioned. The thing that's kind of really antagonizing is if you're going to do a deal like this, why not just bring your entire library to ESPN so we can just access it? I don't think I would have been bothered by that, just paying $30 a month and I have that basic WWE network on ESPN, However, the problem is they've got everything scattered. And I know we covered this a while ago when it first moved to ESPN. Now you got to have Netflix. Now you got to have cable TV for USA. Now you got to have ESPN. I mean, the average cost of that is, if I remember right, you were right about nearly the $60 to $70 a month mark.
It'll end up being, somebody broke it down. I can't remember who. I'd give them a shout out. It ends up being a little over $300 a year.
Yeah.
Which, wow,
Yeah, it's just unreal, what you're doing. And because the whole reason why we as a society went away from that cord cutting or cut the cords was because we were getting it cheaper.
Yeah.
Now we're almost going back in time, paying like the same rates what we were paying cable and satellite. And it's just amazing how even things like this evolve, but yet it's feels like same shit, different day. Sorry for my language, but not for my message. But it's just the one thing we mentioned last week was Vince McMahon better at running WWE, and I think this was one of the proving points right here. He didn't price gouge us as much
Yeah.
as we think he's a slime bag sometimes behind the scenes. He didn't price gouge us, I mean, he had his pros as the owner, but I find it really frustrating with all this.
Well, and the one thing kind of to add to your point, when prices were high back when people were paying for pay-per-views, right? They were paying, 50, $60 for a month. That was while he was building his business. But when his business started really getting built and when it went public and he was making more money and he was making merch, you notice that's when he created the WWE Network for $9.99. So it's like he gave back to the fans.
Exactly.
He said, you know what? I don't need your pay-per-view money anymore because I'm making all this. So $9.99 and keep watching the shows because I know you're now spending money on merch. And if anything, you're creating your grandkids as fans and I got future business. And I think we lost track of that.
Yes, and I think that's something they kind of need to look at again here because the problem is even going to the events live. I mean, you're nearly double, if not triple, what it was 3 years ago as far as attendance. And I'm just like, this kills me. I mean, the combo package to go SmackDown Saturday night's main event in a 2-day combo package where I normally sit, which is about middle of the lower bowl, was nearly $500. And
Yeah.
that, basically $250 an event. For one single event, what we paid 2 years ago was only like $100. And I'm just like, okay, this is not good. Do you want to keep fans coming to your product, or you just want the corporate people that don't really know your product that well, but you just have them show up because of their fame and
Yep.
what eyes they'll bring to your product? And I think we've pretty much already seen the clear choices. Every event progresses with WWE.
Yep. And, really good point with that. You can look no further than the recent Raw with the Stranger Things, right? A lot of great presentation, but look at the fan base in there. And, I think that can kind of lead into some other topics we'll talk with. So,
And I was going to do that after the next
come on.
topic.
That was the perfect transition, John.
But we might as well transition. Thanks, Brian. So, while we talk into that, the Stranger Things tie-in with Raw this week, and all I can say is this Raw could not have been summed up any better than Stranger Things. Just like, okay, you're promoting a show on Netflix, but here's the problem. Unlike previous episodes of Raw or SmackDown that tie in with promoting a movie, promoting a series, we didn't have anything there to promote the show. Brian, what the fuck?
So, we need some sensors, the DX sensors there. But no, we have. So, as you know, I'm trying to get back into the product, right? Because we get that December slump. And so I was like, okay, Stranger Things. That means Netflix is putting a lot of money into WWE tonight, right? They want to promote their final season. And I'm like, cool, I'm in, I'm ready. And it's the first Raw of the year. Last year, it was really good. The debut Raw on Netflix, and it was a great show. I'll stand by it to this a year later. I enjoyed that. That when we had the Ula Fala match and just so many good things, right? So I'm like, cool, debut Raw. This is the kickoff for WrestleMania, according to Triple H. And Stranger Things threw a lot of money. This is going to be good. We have a main event of Bronson Reed and CM Punk. All right, let's do it. And I see the set, and the set looks great. And I'm thinking, wow, if they did PLEs this way and decorated the entire set and I loved how they did the chapters, right? Chapter 1, chapter 4. And I'm like, wow, presentation, bad on execution. And so what I seen was it just felt heartless, right? I felt Netflix paid for a lot of presentation. And a lot of production and a lot of the set for the show, and it looked amazing. So I want to give Netflix some shout out there because I really think Netflix and Stranger Things paid for a lot of money for this. And then we had a lot of moments that happened, right? We had some championship changes, and the main event was a good wrestling match, but kind of to what we just talked about, the crowd was kind of dead, right? Because of, I don't know if it was the type of people that we were getting or what, but I don't want to say that about these guys. I believe they're fans, but the crowd was just a little lackluster because they kind of felt, And then they announced Javon Evans is a big Raw signing call up from NXT, but they did it during a commercial break, apparently. So we only found out about it on Twitter. So I'm like, wow, you only did that in a commercial. And the announcers didn't even acknowledge that. So we got just a lot of, and the opening match was a little lengthy, about 20 minutes, I think, and a lot of commercial breaks. I think they wrestled for 6 seconds and then went to commercial. And I think it just didn't have a lot of heart through the presentation of the matches. Not what they were doing in the ring, but I found myself, remember back in the day, and I'll kind of turn it back over to you, but remember back in the day when we used to watch Raw and we were excited and there was a lot of heart into, oh my gosh, I can't believe this happened. And oh my gosh, did you see what this new wrestler, Rey Mysterio, what he did? And you just had a lot of cool stuff on Monday night and you felt your heart rate jacked up and a little elevated, right? And I feel myself like I'm watching it and I'm just like, okay. But the set had me excited. The appearance had me excited in the first 10 minutes. But then I just kind of watched it and then I was like, all right, yeah, okay. And then it happened. Well, what do you think? I mean, was there anything that stuck out that wowed you?
No, I mean, that was the problem. One, because I was unfamiliar with Stranger Things. I actually just barely started watching it.
Okay.
But for me, if the ball was dropped, I mean, this tie-in with it going into Raw had nothing to it, and to mention Stranger Things, just to sum it up with Raw, it was strange. I don't think anything was strange as far as Becky regaining the Intercontinental Championship, as you mentioned, new champion's crown. But we had the WWE Women's Tag Team Champions change hands. But there was a lot of moments in this episode that just threw us off. I mean, the way it started off with Corey Graves and Michael Cole coming out of a van, I'm just like, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
Why can't we just But I mean, I get what they were trying to do, but like you mentioned, they had everything in place, but the execution just wasn't there. And that can kill it real quick. And unfortunately, I feel like, and I don't know who's dropped the ball on it, whether it was WWE, Netflix, the cast, or Stranger Things. Something didn't work well. Someone didn't get the memo. And when you're doing things like that, you gotta live up to the theme. And unfortunately, Raw didn't hold up to the theme for Stranger Things.
You know what I just realized? This reminded me of the Mountain Dew Royal Rumble match, the dark Mountain Dew pitch black match. Remember that?
Yes.
That's what it reminded me of. Actually, I'm sitting here and I'm like, this reminded me of the corporate marketing. And it was like, Mountain Dew, Mountain Dew, Mountain Dew. And again, the set looked cool, but it felt like overwhelmed. And I don't know. I like them when they do special themed things. So I love Throwback Raw but I don't know what they can do. Maybe it's the storylines. I'm trying to figure it out. Maybe there's something there that I don't know. Maybe we need story writers that suck us into the narrative where we're like, wow, what's going to happen next? I mean, the last meaningful story I was really into was the whole love triangle with, I enjoyed Liv and Rhea and Dom, right? That was some good, compelling love triangle stuff. Cody's title chase was also a good story with the Usos and the Bloodline. Back in the day, everybody used to have a very good story on every Monday Night Raw, and it always escalated. And I don't know, maybe we don't do that anymore, or maybe there's things that just happen, you know. So
Well, I like how you mentioned Liv because that just brought me up another strange thing on Raw. Raquel Rodriguez attacking Stephanie Vaquer after Vaquer just got the victory over her and Nikki Bella in a triple threat match the previous week. And I'm just sitting there thinking, okay, I'm a little shocked why Liv Morgan isn't coming for the championship, but it's going to Raquel. And now we're seeing Raquel be a little more hip tied with Roxanne.
yeah.
It's like, wait a minute, are we changing the plan here? Are we having Liv now be the tag team wrestler and Raquel moving on to singles? It just seems so weird to me why you would keep that going when, I think Vaquer did a good job already putting that feud to rest, but apparently the creative wants to keep going with it, so we'll see what happens. I think this eventually starts, the conflict between Liv and Raquel, but who knows?
Yeah, and I think back to even the masked assailant for the Vision reveal a few weeks ago. That even felt a little lackluster, don't you think?
Well, yeah, I mean, you look at Theory, who's with the Vision, and I don't know, when they had the backstage segment where Braun was getting ready for his match,
Yeah.
something just didn't feel right with Theory right there in the back. And then when he came in and did the curb stomp to CM Punk in the main event, it just, I don't know, something just didn't gel very well with all that.
Yeah. And I do like that they've elevated Theory, and I think his new look is good. But
I just think he's with the wrong group.
yeah, it's just the use of the masked man was a little bit lackluster. And I'm not saying it had to be Jericho. Not saying that. I'm just saying I don't know. I think the reveal could have been a little different, or honestly, he could have even been a reveal and a red herring leading to a real masked man. It could have been multiple people, and they could have revealed him and another tag team partner, and then it could have been like a new tag team reveal. Oh, there was two masked men, they could have had some fun. Maybe they'll still do that, but I think that's all we're getting. But
well, maybe we just bring back the Black Scorpion.
There you go. Give me the Black Scorpion storyline. And people, what do you think about people not being upset that not Sting, Jericho did not appear last night? Did that just ruin the show, or not last night, on Raw?
It's funny because I think the IWC was half and half with this. They were, some were upset, some were not, and I've had this talk with one of my coworkers, actually, big wrestling fan. Shout out to Dustin Homer. He flat out asked me, "Do you think Jericho's on Raw?" I'm like, "No." For one, I just think it's wrong timing. If you want Jericho to come back and be on the screen, put him on the Royal Rumble. And even though he may or may not win that, he is pretty booked solid for the month of February with Fozzy. I mean, they've got dates pretty much almost nonstop in that entire month with their concerts. So if anything, I don't know. I think it was the right call not to have Jericho on there. I was one of the many that would say, yeah, it probably wasn't the right time for it. And a lot of people being upset because they were dropping the hints like, break the walls, or you're seeing moves like the code breaker being performed in some of the wrestling matches.
Yeah, it wouldn't have changed the show too much for me. Honestly, I'd be okay if they even pushed him out to Mania. I mean, I want people to stop talking about it, and then I want it to be injected, because
right.
I hate when people keep talking, and then it's like, because then they're like, well, there he is, moving on. And I'm like, so I want it to be a little more special.
Right.
So I don't know
Well,
how
here, we'll see him here at number 30.
right? Yeah, or at least play Joe Hendry's music and make him come out to that. I don't know.
There we go.
Some way to shock us.
All right. So, Brian, since we talked about new champions, I'm just going to wait to go back to the previous topic we talked about before, but why don't we move on to our new champions segment? New champions crown, a lot of new champions crown this week. First, with the WWE Women's Tag Team Champions, we've had the Women's Intercontinental Championship go back to Becky Lynch. On NXT, unfortunately for Thea Hale, she really pretty much ended up losing that championship to Easy Dame, which that was quite the shocker. Actually, we found out quite a few NXT's talent are now moving up to the main roster. So I think that's why Blake Monroe wasn't going to challenge for the championship. We also saw at the end of NXT this week, Obafemi leaving the championship right there in the middle of the ring, which kudos to you, Brian, because I think you called that. Obafemi looking like he's moving up with everybody else. But also on SmackDown.
The Prime Energy SmackDown, right? Gotta get our corporate sponsorship in there.
There you go. Unfortunately, the main event, the 3 stages of hell, Drew McIntyre becomes the new WWE Undisputed Champion, defeating Cody Rhodes, but with some help from Jacob Fatu. And man, what was your thoughts on that championship match?
Okay, initial Raw thoughts. Wow, they give SmackDown so much more than Raw. I was like, wow, they gave SmackDown a feature match change. And after we just got done talking about how Raw is, right? It's like, well, your deal's signed. Let's keep SmackDown happy. And I didn't watch it live. I watched it after because, SmackDown isn't as top priority for me. And I was like, wow, I missed something cool. So, and Drew McIntyre, very much earned. Nobody has done as much work as I've appreciated in WWE as Drew McIntyre in the last couple of years. And, a lot of people do overlook it. They don't overlook it because we all know he's good, but he consistently has had so much good work with multiple top wrestlers, CM Punk and Cody and everyone, right? And I think this is the WWE's way of saying, here you go. I don't know if it's going to be a long reign. I don't know if Cody just gets it back, maybe in a triple threat at Rumble. And then we just continue right back on the road to Mania. And if this was a way just to kind of reward Drew, or are they going to go with Drew and, all the way to Mania? That can, kind of wait to be seen. Really quick note. I would love just side journey here. I would love to see Obafemi. If I was booking the Rumble, I would just push him to the moon. I would love it. I would push him like Brock Lesnar, the next big thing. But I keep him away from Braun Breaker. Put him on SmackDown. Keep him away. You can't have 2 next generational guys on the same show. Keep them separate. I want to bring that point out about Obafemi, though. I do think he's the real deal. But back to Drew and Cody, I don't think it's over for Cody. I think it's just a quick bump in the road, and I think this is a great way to reward Drew. But I think Cody does get it back in maybe a triple threat, and then I think Drew and Jacob kind of spin off into their program while Cody takes on the winner of the Rumble. I could see that, and you never know. I mean, if I get my way, it could be Oba winning, and then we get that Cody Oba rematch at Mania. I mean, I didn't plan this, me saying that, but maybe I just booked it and I didn't realize it. But what are your thoughts on all the changes?
So with the changes, that kind of throws me in now. Is the direction going to change for WrestleMania? Because I shouldn't say we all, but the majority, I think, of the IWC had it pretty clear cut that we were going to see Roman and Cody 3 for the WWE Undisputed Championship.
Anything
You're
but,
prob-
please.
What's that?
Anything but, please.
Yeah. Especially to keep Carlos's sanity, especially what he said in the group chat. But also, we all were kind of thinking it was going to be Punk and Brock Lesnar. But, with these title changes recently, I think we could be going in a different direction now. I mean, as Carlos has mentioned, shout out to our brother Carlos there with us here at the Fans of Pro Wrestling, and also the Wrestle Collective. They do some great shows on YouTube, and also a bunch of spaces on the X platform. Be sure to go check them out. Lots of great content from those guys. Carlos says, based off what happened on SmackDown, I'd be okay if it was still Rock and Cody, but we don't necessarily need a championship for that, and I agree with him. We don't. I mean, really, we don't need a well, actually, sorry, I quoted that wrong. He was pretty much saying we don't need a trilogy for it, which I agree.
I agree.
I mean, you can only have the same main event so many times, because look what happened with Rock and Stone Cold. They had 3 great main event matches at 3 separate WrestleManias, but we didn't really need them main eventing every WrestleMania either. So, I just think with today's wrestling, it can be just go a little too over the top.
Yep.
And I think like your reaction just there,
Yeah.
that's probably the last thing that the IWC really wants to see is Roman and Cody 3. Let's change it up a little bit. Hell yeah, let's see Oba and Drew McIntyre, or Punk and who knows, Gunther, or maybe Seth Rollins or whoever. I doubt Seth Rollins is going to be back in time anyway, but you know what I mean? Change it up a little bit. I think sometimes when they do these promo packages promoting the big PLE events, I think sometimes they get ahead of themselves and try to plant the story in front of us right there as they're advertising.
Mm-hmm.
But I like the fact that now we kind of got some different thinking going on with all these changes lately.
Well, and a couple thoughts on that. One, I think, and it just popped in my head. Remember, we're thinking Rumble, but we also have to book for Elimination Chamber. So now that we've got Jacob Fatu, Drew McIntyre, Oba Femi, Cody Rhodes, these guys are all starting to interlock. Right there's 4 spots in the Elimination Chamber. So now we're starting to get a multi-man match. We just need 2 more spots to fill. So that right there may be SmackDown, may be the featured Elimination Chamber match that, they're already planning out, since we were already starting to mix and intermingle these guys a little bit. So I just thought of that because I was like, wow, what multi-man match could we have? Well, and in my head, I was like, there it is. As far as a trilogy for Cody Roman, I agree with you and Carlos. There's no story, in my opinion, that needs to be told anymore. We had Cody try to climb the mountain and fall short, and immediately 1 year later conquer the big Mount Everest that is Roman and the bloodline. And we got one of the most epic final 5 minutes of WrestleMania history, right? And we got basically, like I said, Avengers versus Thanos, right? And I mean, you had The Undertaker and Seth Rollins in the Shield, old school cameo, and you just had so much stuff, right? And it took the WWE universe to defeat the ultimate villain, Roman. And I'm like, you can't top that. And there was so much emotion behind that. And Cody Rhodes became the new John Cena to carry in the forward WWE generation. And I'm like, there's no story to tell with Roman there, right? And I think where anything else would really fall a little bit flat. And I really believe there's better stories to tell with Roman. And I think we could come up with something a little bit better for Roman, right? And I think Cody is now starting to, take a page out of John's book and work with these newer, younger guys. And I think that's going to be that's going to be Cody Rhodes' legacy, who is the new John Cena, for building future stars to work with. And I think that's why you're starting to see Obafemi and you're starting to see Jacob Fatu now and a little Drew, who's already a made champion, but he wants to work with them a little more and make them stronger. And I think that's just what we're going to get out of Cody's journey now. And that's going to keep Cody fresh. He can't just keep fighting guys like Randy Orton and, all these there is a Randy Orton match to be had. And they could have that multi-man match at Elimination Chamber. And Randy could be in that match. He could win a title. And then he could say, I got something you want, Cody. Or we could go that route, right? And then there's the mentor protege. And then that could be Cody's story right there, beating his old mentor. So I'm just spitballing here. So I don't, work for the creative team, obviously. But maybe we should, right, John?
Well, you do hold stock in him, Brian. So, we got to keep our eyes on you. So,
right.
Yeah. Anyways, why don't we go out and move on to our last topic here. And I'm going to have to pull up a tweet on my phone here, folks. And I'm sorry because I won't be looking at the camera here. But
yeah, while I was doing that, we're overall talking about just the state of PLEs and the quality of the PLEs we're getting in the modern era. And this came from Bruce Pritchard, recent comments that John will be looking up. And just not just the length of the events, but the quality of matches and how many matches we're getting. And John, were you able to find that?
Yeah, I am. And here's the funny part. So this actually came off a tweet from Elite Rockers. And obviously they listened to Something to Wrestle with Bruce Pritchard and Conrad Thompson. WWE executive Bruce Pritchard said WWE limits PLEs to 4 to 5 matches because longer cards, 10 matches, cause viewers to forget earlier moments, usually remembering only the main event, which is why WWE follows a less is more approach for its PLEs. Now, Brian, you and I have talked about this many times on the Wrestling Fans Incite here. The one thing we give kudos is WWE doesn't go very long on their PLEs, but the problem we have is they're very promo based, meaning we seem to bring up a lot of the backstories to every match, which kind of frustrates me because, as Ted the Hillbilly Hill would say, why bother watching the weekly programming when you can get just the gist of watching the promo before the match on the PLE card? And he's right. I mean, there's no sense to going back and watching Raw or SmackDown or NXT when you're just going to get the cliff notes right before the match. So you pretty much get the gist of what's going on. And we've always mentioned that, AEW's pay-per-views, they tend to go pretty long. But if you go look at it, what you pay for your money-wise, AEW provides a lot of action for your buck on the PLEs. You get probably about anywhere between 12 to 15 matches on an AEW pay-per-view. That includes the matches from the 0 hour or the pre-show. But you go to WWE, you're getting about 3-hour PLEs with 4 to 5 matches. And for me, I think they could bump it up a little more if you're going to do 3-hour PLEs. Back in the day, you were able to at least squeeze in 7 to 8 just in that 3-hour period. But for me, I kind of don't like the Bruce's logic on this because 4 to 5 matches, people are forgetting the main event and all the other moments in the PLE. To me, that's kind of an insult to your wrestling fans. They're basically saying, no, hey, you're short span, so That's why we're going to cut it short. And now that you moved your PLEs to ESPN, paying $30 instead of keeping the regular, $10 to $15, depending which platform,
Yeah.
whether it was your Netflix, WWE Network, or now, Peacock. I kind of felt like that was more of a slap in the face, an insult to the wrestling fans, or I should say WWE fans. But Brian, what's your take on that?
Yeah, and I like your points. This is what I like to call reason or excuse. Is Bruce Pritchard's logic a reason or excuse to have less matches on the PLE, right? I think your answer would be reason or excuse. I think your answer would be an excuse, right? Versus a reason. Let's go a little further here. Would you say WrestleMania 6 was a very memorable pay-per-view?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I mean, lots of things to remember that.
What were some that just stuck out to you off the bat? That was a lot of years ago.
Yeah. So, obviously Hogan Warrior championship for championship, Intercontinental champion challenging the World Wrestling Federation champion. Winner takes all out of that. You had Dusty Rhodes and Sapphire take on I believe it was it was the Macho King and Sensational Sherry at that time.
Yep.
You had Roddy Piper take on Bad News Brown, which was kind of a controversial thing from Roddy Piper doing the face paint of the white and black. I'm like, these days that would not go well, but back then he probably got away with it. We also had Demolition, who had that huge defeat from suffering their loss of the tag team championship, but regaining it from the Colossal Connection. I mean, there was lots of great moments in WrestleMania 6.
I'm sitting here smiling because you're rattling off a lot, right? And this is unscripted. I just randomly picked a WrestleMania. Okay. I looked up that WrestleMania has 14 to 15 matches on it, and it's very memorable. Okay. So I'm just proving that point. WrestleMania 12 has 8 matches on it total. And that includes a 1-hour Iron Man match between Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels.
Yep.
And even back then, they could still squeeze 8 matches on that card. And that was including an hour match that they planned an hour for. Actually, it went over an hour because it went into overtime. But who's counting? So at the end of the day, I'm sitting here and saying excuse. It's an excuse that they're using to pay less money and to say, ooh, I can use less workers and I can add more commercials and I can just get in, get my production and get done, right? And then that's less matches I have to produce. That's less planning. And to me, that's an excuse. I don't have to give you as much and you'll pay a lot of money to sit there and go like this for 10, 12 minutes.
Hey.
Yeah. And you'll be happy and you'll clap like a seal and you'll buy some shirts and you'll go home. All right. So it might be a little harsh, but at the end of the day, and you're going to pay quadruple the price to do all that for way less. Okay. Those 2 WrestleManias I just mentioned had 15 matches on a traditional WrestleMania and 8 matches when there was an hour Iron Man match. At the end of the day, they never took away for the quality of minutes that they gave you. They gave you quality of minutes of wrestling with backstage segments and with interviews and special guests, right? And the special guests were appropriately used, and they weren't used in the main event because you wanted to release a rap album, because you wanted to look cool with your buddies and try to get more people to come up to your show. Yeah, it is a dig, right? And you took away a very special moment from what should have been a monumental 17-time world championship record, right? But at the end of the day, yeah, I think it's an excuse and it's an insult, like you said, John, to fans. You're saying, and I always joke and I say with the TikTok generation, I always say, oh, I got to get my information out there in 7 seconds. Otherwise, I got the memory of a goldfish, right? But in all joking aside, wrestling fans have a very long memory. And if you I mean, God, you don't stay with the continuity of certain storylines. They'll remind you. They'll remind you that Bubba Ray Dudley had a stutter and you never explained it. Right? They'll remind you of things that sometimes I forget, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's right. And there's a whole list we could look up of unforgotten WWE stories that never got finished. And there's tons of them out there, right? And those fans will find it. So I think it's an insult to say, oh, fans won't remember, and we're not kindergartners. And, oh, they can't sit still, and they need, to be able to sit still and pay attention for a few hours. We're not children. We're not, we actually love to sit there and watch this stuff and be into it and see what happened. Now, I will say AEW stuff gets a little lengthy, but at the end of the day, I know some people complain about that. I never do, because even though I go, ooh, that's a long one, I'm never going to get mad about somebody saying, you know what, Tony Khan never sends people home and says, I never got enough to eat.
Yeah.
And I'd rather be more grateful for that. And this talent, they never get to walk away and say, I didn't get to work, and I didn't get to work on my skills today. And I think that's important too, for development of the business. So.
All right. Well, I enjoyed this conversation today, Brian. I mean, these were some great topics, even though we didn't go quite in the order we were planning today, but I think we transitioned very well with this. And I hope many of you enjoyed this episode. Sorry, it wasn't probably the best one to do yet, but we're getting back into things. I do think some things mentioned here were worth noting, and I don't know too many people probably bring it up, but we did, and we hope you've enjoyed it. Please be sure to go check us out on our YouTube channels and our Spotify channels. If you're able to leave comments or feedback, please do so. Also, subscribe and rate to us. Be sure to also go to Brian's Tap Out Talk on YouTube there. He's at Tap Out Talk on the YouTube. Go subscribe, like everything. Give him some great comments and replies there. Also, whoops, wrong slide. You can follow us on the X app. You can follow me at WFI Pod or at the FOPW Network, as I am the admin for the Fans of Pro Wrestling Network. William, who's not with us this week, he's out doing some things. Unfortunately, we're not live on Sunday, I should say. But be sure to go check him out. It may take him a year or two to get to you. At William Hoppy 8. And Brian?
At the Brian Adkins.
And also check out and participate in our X community for the Fans of Pro Wrestling. You can do it at my main page at FOPW Network or at WFI Pod. You'll see it spotlighted right there in our profiles. Also, be sure to go join our brother Carlos from the Fans of Pro Wrestling, as he also does content for the Wrestle Collective. He's on the X Space every Monday and Wednesday. Mondays usually right after Raw, Wednesdays right after AEW Dynamite. He does Raw reactions on Monday with Carlos on Mondays, the Wednesday Night Chaos. They're also partnered up with the Wrestle Collective, and be sure to go check out our Wrestle Collective brothers. Also, we already mentioned that. We also have a group chat on the X for the Fans of Pro Wrestling. Just get with me, Brian, or Carlos on how to join. Doesn't really take much. Just be a positive wrestling fan. Not everything has to be positive, but just don't be a dick, as Hannibal would say to other fans in there. More importantly, Brian, let's go right into our final thoughts and shout outs for the week.
Yeah, final thoughts. Enjoy wrestling. WrestleMania season. Enjoy wrestling. Don't be overly critical, and just always know that you're not going to enjoy everything out there. I sit back and, even though I said on the show in this past programming, I was like, I felt a little kind of heartless with some stuff, right? I was like, it's okay, but it doesn't dissuade me because I am a lifelong fan. And I always kind of come back and say, man, I hope it's going to get a little better. And, it's those moments that we do enjoy, that we enjoy talking. And, thank you to everybody out in the Twitter community. And I always enjoy just jumping in on Carlos and the spaces out there. And, and Wrestling Collective and all that. And I tag in when I can, and I love just sitting back and listening. And they try to make me talk once in a while, and I try to talk once in a while, but sometimes I'm just tired and I just want to listen. So thank you guys.
And I joined in there too. So Brian, Viva la Resistance! No, Carlos, Sean, Dev, Stampede all do a fantastic job on those spaces. So be sure to go give those guys some loves and some support, as well as our friends over there at the DWE Network, Miami the Great, Final Boss Lady, EVP CJ. They all do some great content over there, as well as After the Slam Pod, who just joined the DWE. Also, be sure to go check out our friends over at the Wager Wire on X, Carolina, Rosie Blue Eye, Amber Holly, Billy, Adam, James McMahon. Lots of great stuff going there. They do almost daily spaces on the X app. Go check them out at Wager Wire again. Also, want to give a shout out to Fan Band Podcast, Steel and Teal Talk, 1420 Sports Bar Podcast, Nate's Daily Wager, the IAP Radio, In a Pickle Radio. And that is going to do it for this week. Again, I'd like to echo the comments of Brian. Be sure to just enjoy wrestling, folks. Be critical, but don't be negative. There's so many wrestling companies out there. It's like a buffet. If you don't like the potatoes, move on to the prime rib or whatever it is you like on there. So
I know that's right.
With that being said, we will be back next Sunday with a fun episode. We hope you all have a great week and take care, everybody.